So I'd like to welcome Dan Lowe as our guest speaker for today. Dan is a JET alum and the founder of Japanese Circle and Boston Intercultural Consulting. Tonight, he'll be sharing his expertise on how to prepare for Japanese immersion on JET, build a supportive learning community, and staying motivated in your language learning and goals. Um, uh, Unlike Valerie, I actually did not know any Japanese prior to being on JET. So I think having these resources and all those tips would have been tremendously helpful for me. So hopefully this will be helpful for you guys as you're about to depart on JET in a few weeks. And Dan, I'll hand it over to you.
Hey, thank you, Julia, and thank you, Valerie. Quick check. Do you see my presentation in presentation mode? Excellent. I gave a presentation 5 years ago to a group of Japanese executives, and I found out I was on the first slide the whole time. So no one told me. So I still ask that. So first of all, congratulations to everyone going on the program. If you don't know your placement yet, you will soon. And just being all those locations that I was actually able to visit through actually making a lot of friends at Tokyo Orientation. I actually went to go visit them at some point on the program. So as you prepare for the program, please use this time to bond as well. And yeah, you're soon to be on an incredible adventure. So, as part of that adventure, I'm happy to share about what I've learned about building a Japanese learning system. And this comes from, I did JET 13 years ago, is when I finished the program. Since then, I have interacted with literally thousands of JETs. And a question I always like to ask is about Japanese learning journeys. And something I hear a lot is there's Jets who have studied Japanese before going on the program, perhaps in college, perhaps not, and also those similar to Valerie and then Julia who hadn't. And I had one friend on the program who's like, if one more person tells me I need to learn Japanese and then not tell me how I'm going to tear my hair out, was his exact words. So we are framing the next 9 or 10 minutes into how to learn Japanese once your scaffolding disappears. Because not everyone studied Japanese in college, but as part of a requirement for the program, you have at one point gone to college. So you understand what it's like to learn with syllabi and have deadlines and have grades and a GPA you're accountable to. Where on JET, that scaffolding largely disappears. So you'll have the Japanese language proficiency test, which is offered every July and December. You'll have coworkers you want to connect to, life stuff, cell phone contracts, and hobbies, and that type of thing. But these are all relatively soft. You can put off JLPT for another 6 months. You can put off joining a specific event. So, this framework I'm introducing is about how to stay accountable to yourself because in reality, I've talked to Jets who did all 5 years of the program and did not learn Japanese. They typically were on more city placements, so they had more resources where they could use English. But just to frame this as just because you're in Jet on Japan doesn't mean you're going to learn Japanese. So this comes down to building the right system. So I'm not a huge fan of like grind culture. That can work for a time, but it's similar to how New Year's resolutions generally start to wind down once you hit February and March. And two concepts you might have come across, whether on LinkedIn, online, book, is the 80/20 principle and the 20-hour rule. So 80/20 is basically 20% of effort. Will get you 80% of the best results or variation of that. And in our world of apps and AI, and you can build an app in a weekend, there's just a lot of not very good content out there, frankly. And something like Duolingo, which I think is an amazing resource for building a habit as like a warm up, like 5 minutes before like the actual study. But just because someone has done Duolingo every day for years does not necessarily mean they will have learned the language, right? So this is more about getting in touch with your goals and the actual intentions. And then we have the 20-hour principle, which is basically a whole lot of skills. If you narrow it down to the right chunk, you can learn in 20 hours. So, hiragana and katakana, for example, you can probably master in 20 hours for most people. Um, Learning the first 100 to 200 vocab words and getting the pitch accent perfect. Like 20 hours of real focused study, um, with the right feedback, you can do a lot of damage with. So this is a way to saying that leaving the university system, there's a lot of pluses with it, but you're now actually free to pursue a system that works for you. And in terms of how to implement this, I tend to find that it's best to think in terms of a three-legged stool. So, and I'm not going to stand on a soapbox and say this is the only way to learn Japanese. This is just through literally hundreds of conversations, what I've heard um, and seen work best for people, which is about surround, produce, and feedback as the three legs to the stool, and all held together by the right. So when I say surround, I mean surround yourself with learners who have healthy learning habits. Because humans, we're social, we adapt to the habits of those around us. And not all the Jets you meet will want to prioritize Japanese, and that's perfectly okay. It only takes a few growth-minded learners to enforce our own habits. And so, for example, when I studied abroad in Japan, having JLPT N2, or dare I say N1, is like, like, how did you do that? That's impossible. Where of the 60 or so jets in Chiba that I was with, at least 15 passed N1. I was not one of them, but like 25% had N1 by the end of jet. So, we can talk about how studying for a test is not the best measure of a language, but basically to say these 15 jets surrounded themselves with each other. And what was once framed as this like impossible milestone was actually something where it's like, okay, this is actually possible. Let me learn from other people and see what they're doing. Second is producing the language. So we hear all the time. I use a lot of boxing, and I've never boxed. I don't know why I do that. But essentially, going to the gym is important, but at some point you want to get into the ring and tie what you've learned together. And this is going to be either speaking or writing. I will say that writing is by far the most underused this in learning Japanese, and it arguably has the biggest return because unlike speaking, when you write something, people will actually give you feedback and you can dissect it, which brings us to the third leg of the stool, which is getting immediate feedback. There's been oodles of research done in learning with, if you imagine a 20 question quiz, and is it better to get feedback at the end of it or immediately after answering each question? And it's the latter. Like you want that immediate feedback. This also comes into with chess masters or chess learners. It's easy to play game after game after game to practice, but there was a study in the 90s that showed pretty clearly you want to play a game and then have it dissected and then take that into the next game going forward. And in general, like I said, it's easier to get feedback in writing, and I like to frame things as keepers and improvers. This is also a technique I encourage Jets to use with becoming better teachers, which is the primary job of the program as an assistant language teacher, is setting up regular time with JTEs to get keepers and improvers. So what does this all look like in practice? Why do you need all three? So, when you're producing Japanese and getting feedback, but not surrounding yourself with the right people or habits, that's like getting in the ring, receiving feedback, but never actually going to the gym to get stronger. Meanwhile, surrounding yourself with the right people and habits, getting feedback, but not actually producing. It's the whole like gym bro stereotype, but without ever getting in the ring. And then finally, we have producing and surrounding ourselves, but never getting feedback, which is about getting stronger, entering the ring, but never knowing how you did, which is the most insidious one, because this is how poor habits with Japanese can fossilize. This makes the JLPT N3-ish stage arguably the most dangerous because we kind of know how to say everything at that point, and then N2 and N1 is like learning more natural ways or variety of ways of saying it. So a lot of the particle usage and areas like that, we can form these habits that just are a little bit more difficult to break. So, what does this all look like as a checklist? So, there's 7 steps. So, first, identifying jets who are better at you than you at Japanese. This is a good thing. It's easier to like feel discouraged when someone's like better at more advanced at Japanese than you, and like half the time, like I want to interview that person. Like, how did you do that? Right. And similarly, identify jets who've made learning Japanese a priority. These could be the same people, they might be different. Then setting up regular accountability calls with them, and then asking for keepers and improvers in your day-to-day life. Something I haven't really spoken about, but setting a failure goal or quota, actually framing failure as a good thing and something to actually strive for. It's like commit to messing up Japanese 5 times a day and then getting feedback on that will carry you so much further than like endless Anki flashcards. And then explore hobbies unrelated to language and learning. Part of this is kind of getting away from one's non-Japanese-ness and embracing other areas of your hobbies. And you'll also learn vocabulary that is matters more to you that probably won't be found in a textbook. And then finally, setting a 6 to 12 week learning goal built around either the 20-hour chunks I mentioned or the 80/20 principle. And if you're like, Dan, we haven't talked about setting a 6 or 12 week learning goal, that's because that's a much longer conversation. And fortunately, we already had that conversation. So, uh, in mid-January this year, we held on JapaneseCircle.com, we held a 12-week learning plan workshop. This is all recorded. It's a webinar. It's available to you. It's free. Scan the QR code, sign up for the mailing list, and you also hear about the upcoming events, workshops, speaking drills, and writing drills that we have. You also get free, we keep it pretty low tech, so we have like Google Docs and Sheets to track your journey, and it's been pretty well received. So happy about that. If you're like, Dan, these 7 steps are awesome, but they're a lot of work. I'm much more focused on other things, then this is completely no pressure, completely optional. But we do also we have an upcoming 6 week jet writing challenge. We're actually this week wrapping up our most recent one and when I say we, this is JapaneseCircle.com. And basically the way it works is you receive a prompt each week. You write a response in Japanese at your level, reply to 2 other members, and then receive professional line by line feedback that is public, right? So we're all learning from each other. So there's an accountability piece, there's a learning from each other piece. This is limited to 12 people. It's on the more expensive side, just to be frank. But if you are interested in this, I want to get back to the program. So if you do sign up by, I think just like 24 hours left, there's like a steep discount if you use the discount code next get. But honestly, I built this for you. You could also do all of this on your own for free. So just want to emphasize that as well. So that is think that's coming up on my 10 minutes. I might even be a little bit over, so I apologize. But just once more, very much want to congratulate everyone who's going on the program. It is the adventure of a lifetime. First 3 weeks will set your tone, so please say yes to as many invites as you feel comfortable with. So I will hand things back to Julia and Valerie. Thank you.